Day 279, The Best Made Plans. When I was a young man, I had a few opportunities to plow a field with my grandfather. We would turn the soil with the remnants of last year's crop into the ground and prepare for the next season's planting. One day during our plowing, we upset a large mouse nest, and about 15 mice went running out of the ground that we had recently disrupted. I reflected on how the mice had no control over the circumstance. In their short span of existence, they could have had at least 12 generations of mice produced in this cozy little den. The original couple that settled and built that nest must have done so early in the planting season the previous year. Life had gone on in perfect bliss and in perfect mouse conditions for 18 months, when suddenly catastrophic destruction was brought into their lives. Years later, in a high school class, I was introduced to some poetry by Robert Burns. He was a Scottish poet who wrote many lyrics to common songs. One of his poems, called "To a Mouse on turning her up in her nest with the plow," reflects this exact experience of my youth. Here's the poem. But Mousie, thou art no thy lane. Improving foresight may be vain. The best laid schemes of mice and men gang aft agley, and leest not but grief and pain for promised joy. Yesterday I completed my once-a-year epic journey into one of the wilderness areas of the United States. I will detail this experience in an up-and-coming blog, but during this hike, my daughter had a similar experience. We finished a long march along a high desert plateau that left us exhausted and desperate for flat and clear ground to set up our tents. After a scan of the area and a search, we found a rudimentary campsite where someone had built a fire ring many, many years ago. There were a few locations under ancient-looking juniper trees where we could pitch a tent. After setting up all of our gear in our tents, we decided to create a small fire in the ancient ring to sit by as we got ready to go to sleep. After lighting the fire, my daughter noticed an anthill that was near the edge of the fire ring. As the fire matured, the ground became warmer and warmer. Pretty soon you could see some ants investigating to find out what was the cause of the extra warmth. After a few minutes, the ants started abandoning their home very rapidly. They were carrying larvae out, looking in desperation for an escape path. These ants did not know what they had built their home next to a fire ring. Another human had not been in the spot for probably more than 10 years. The queen ants set up the colony in what seemed like ideal conditions. Loose soil, protection from rocks, available food supply from the nearby juniper trees. They had been surviving here for many years until this fateful moment when all of a sudden there was this life-threatening turmoil. So my daughter had the same life experience that I did as a child, at about the same age. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, you do not understand the full picture or the dynamics going on around you, and your plans get dashed by events and circumstances that are seemingly out of your control. This was the way of our entire backpacking trip. We had tremendous plans, great ambitions to forge one river, cross a plateau, and forge another. Unfortunately, the near jungle-like overgrowth in the first stream, the lightning storms, the hailstorms, and a spreading wildfire would thwart our ambitions, and we would end up taking a different path. Our best-laid plans did not come to reality, but we did, however, forge new trails that were probably equally rewarding. This is how it is in life. Whether you are an ant, a field mouse, or a human, best to stop stressing about things that are not turning out the way you want and get to the process of living.